Rachel Reeves destroyed by Labour's own hypocrisy. The Shadow Chancellor's controversial inheritance tax raid has backfired spectacularly, as it's revealed that Labour MP Henry Tufnell's family moved millions of pounds in farmland out of reach just weeks before the policy was announced. This bombshell revelation has left Reeves scrambling for answers while farmers across the country cry foul. Was this a case of insider information, or is Labour's credibility completely shattered? Hold on, because this story is about to get explosive. But first, watch this shocking clip of Wendy Chamberlain tearing into Labour's disastrous policy.
Do you think that Labour are managing the economy well? Do you think that their budget is doing more harm than good, certainly in the case of this inheritance tax raid on farmers?
Well, I mean, I think we always have to remember that even if inflation has come down, it still means that prices are going up. And we're not looking at the same increases that we had during the last government. But I think it's important that we remember, particularly on food prices, those have gone up in excess of expectations. And there's absolutely no doubt that if we look at what the new government's expectations were in terms of the economy more generally, already only a few weeks post the budget, it is not going in that direction. And it's quite clear that the public are feeling the effects of that.
But also the effects of deficit in the budget overall. Rachel Reeves, she's already saying she's no alternative. She's got to raise taxes. Now, you're calling for the government to scrap this family farm tax. What would you replace it with, or what's the alternative?
Yeah, Eamon, we laid out a number of proposals in our manifesto, and those haven't changed. We looked at things, for example, like a social media tax, cutting the big bank charge cuts that they experienced under the last government, and also looking at reforming corporation tax as well. So there are a number of proposals that we had. What's quite clear is for a relatively small tax take, now I'm not pretending that £500 million isn't a lot of money, but it seems to be that this is a decision on this family farm tax that has full-scale turned the farming sector against the government. And there's a number of people, and even my own constituents from North East Fife were down in London for the protest a couple of weeks ago, and they felt very strongly that, having spoken to their accountant, spoken to their lawyer, as the government said that they should do, that they were going to be negatively impacted. So the government really have got this one wrong.
Rachel Reeves thought her bold new inheritance tax policy targeting farmland would be the centrepiece of Labour's economic reforms. Instead, it has become a public relations nightmare. At the heart of the controversy is Henry Tufnell, the young Labour MP for Mid and South Pembrokeshire, whose family's carefully timed financial manoeuvres have landed them, and Labour, in hot water. Just 20 days before Reeves unveiled the budget, Tufnell's parents, Mark and Jane, transferred a significant portion of their 2,200-acre Calmsden estate, worth an estimated £22 million, to his younger brother, Albemarle. This transaction effectively shielded the land from Labour's new tax rules, which abolish inheritance tax relief for agricultural estates valued over £1 million. Under the old rules, farmland was exempt from death duties if it remained in agricultural use. But Reeves's plan replaces that with a 20% tax on all estates exceeding the threshold, a move critics say will devastate small family-run farms. The Tufnell family's decision to transfer ownership of Upper Colne Farm and Stud, a business worth over £2 million, before the announcement means they avoided this costly tax hike. Adding fuel to the fire, a second transaction occurred just a week before the budget. Mark Tufnell created the Tufnell 2024 Settlement Trust, reportedly designed to pass wealth directly to future generations. While legal, the timing has sparked outrage, with critics accusing the family of using insider information to sidestep the very policies Labour is imposing on ordinary farmers. Mims Davies, Shadow Welsh Secretary, called the situation a slap in the face to rural communities. Hard-working farmers who are already struggling under Labour's heavy-handed policies will be furious to learn that one of Labour's own seems to have escaped the impact entirely. This is hypocrisy of the highest order. The backlash has been swift and brutal. Farmers have staged protests across the country, culminating in last week's tractor blockade in central London. Protesters carried signs reading "Labour betrayed farmers" and "End the land grab," as they called on the party to scrap the inheritance tax changes. Many view the Tufnell family's actions as emblematic of Labour's disconnect from rural Britain. Caught in the eye of the storm, Henry Tufnell has attempted to downplay his family's actions. "I understand how this looks, but the decisions made by my parents are entirely their own. Like many farming families, they sought professional advice and acted to protect their future," he said, but his attempt to shift the narrative has only deepened public outrage. Tufnell even suggested that other farmers should follow his family's example, a comment that has been widely criticised as tone-deaf. When small farmers in Pembrokeshire are losing their livelihoods, to hear their own MP say, "Do what my millionaire family did," is beyond insulting, said one protester. Despite these claims, speculation about insider knowledge refuses to die down. Critics point to the precise timing of the transactions, which occurred mere weeks before Reeves's policy was announced. While Labour officials insist that even high-ranking members of the party, including DEFRA Secretary Steve Reed, were unaware of the details before the budget, the Tufnell family's swift action has fueled doubts. A spokesperson for the Tufnell family denied any impropriety, insisting the decisions were made independently and based on general concerns about future tax policies. The family retains significant exposure to inheritance tax on the remaining 1,700 acres of Calmsden estate, the spokesperson added, noting that much of the land is still subject to Labour's changes. As the scandal continues to dominate headlines, Rachel Reeves has faced mounting pressure to defend her policy. Initially touted as a fair way to close loopholes exploited by the ultra-wealthy, the inheritance tax reform has backfired spectacularly. Even Dan Needle, a tax expert whose analysis Labour once championed, has reversed his position, calling the policy overly harsh on farmers while leaving significant loopholes intact. "This is a classic case of bad policy-making," Neidl said. "The burden falls disproportionately on small, family-run farms, while larger estates find ways to sidestep the rules. It's a disaster in the making." The optics couldn't be worse for Reeves. Farmers, once cautiously optimistic about Labour's promises to support rural communities, now accuse the party of betrayal. "They've turned their backs on us," said Gareth Wynne-Jones, a prominent farming advocate, "and this scandal shows they're willing to protect their own while leaving the rest of us to fend for ourselves." The Tufnell scandal has also exposed deep divisions within Labour. While many MPs have publicly defended Reeves's budget, others privately admit the policy is a political liability. Liberal Democrat MP Wendy Chamberlain broke ranks, blasting the inheritance tax changes as ill-conceived. "Labour has got it wrong. This policy is punishing the very people they claim to support," she said. "The scandal threatens to derail Labour's broader agenda, with rural voters increasingly sceptical of the party's ability to govern fairly." The fallout has been particularly damaging for Henry Tufnell, whose position as a rural MP representing a farming constituency now seems untenable. As protests escalate, calls for Labour to reverse the inheritance tax policy are growing louder. Samuel Kurtz, a member of the Welsh Parliament, urged the party to reconsider. "This policy is unworkable. It's devastating for rural communities, and it's clear the public won't stand for it." But Labour appears to be digging in its heels. Reeves has doubled down, arguing that the changes are necessary to ensure fairness in the tax system. Whether the party can weather the storm remains to be seen, but for now, the Tufnell scandal has become a rallying cry for those who feel abandoned by Labour's policies. What do you think, folks? Is this just a case of savvy planning by the Tufnell family, or does it expose Labour's hypocrisy at its worst? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button, like this video, and stay tuned for more explosive updates on this and other political dramas.